Let's dial up one of the stars of the newest show, Horrible Bosses 2. Joining us from Los Angeles this morning is the one and only Chris Pine. Chris, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us here in Vancouver.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Let's talk about your character, Rex. He's a sociopath. He's a homicidal villain that just wants a friend or two. What caught your eye about your character, Rex, for this role?
I think you said it in that introduction. He's a lovely mix of just being out of his mind crazy, but also with this kind of hopefully sensitive side that he's just a man in desperate need of friends and has an odd way of expressing that friendship.
How do you approach this role, given the cast has a great rapport, having worked together on the original, when you've got Jason Bateman, Charlie Day, and Jason Sudeikis?
Really, I think what I learned about doing a comedy like this is that it's much like, I guess, music. Everybody has I don't know what the metaphor would be, an instrument to play. There's kind of a pattern to it, so you have to figure out how best to fit into that pattern and to do your job best. I realized essentially that my job wasn't really to do the comedy as much as to set up the guys for the funny. So it took a little bit to figure that out, but it was a great cast, and they were all super supportive and have years and years of experience behind them. So I felt pretty, pretty supported by that experience.
When you're dealing with these three guys as well, was there a certain scene or moment on set that taught you about how to deliver a punchline when it comes to a comedy?
No, as I said, it was more just observing than anything. I think what I was most struck by is that, they say that comedy is oftentimes harder than drama, and I think that that's probably the case. Because in order to do your best work, and this is what I learned from the guys, you really have to understand the structure of a scene and break it down and figure out what works and what doesn't, if anything needs to be excised or moved around. And they were pretty diligent about that, and they would go through that process before they, before the comedy started.
What did you learn from working with director Sean Anders in this sequel?
Sean had an incredible sense of diplomacy. You're dealing with a lot of guys with a tremendous amount of experience behind them, and all with great ideas of their own. And like any great director, as I've learned in my time in the business, if they are the better directors, I think, allow for the most ideas that they can gather. They don't care where the ideas come from. If the good idea wins over, ego or whoever idea it is. So he was a great collector of ideas, and then he would kind of move things around and let us, give us the boundaries to mess around.
I think everyone can relate to having a horrible boss at some point or another in their lifetime. How have you dealt with having a horrible person ahead of you when it comes to being a boss?
Well, I think practical needs outweigh whatever personal problems you have. Usually if you got to make a paycheck, you got to make a paycheck. So I'm all about careful, skillful avoidance, and patience. Patience is key.
All right, well, we got to talk about Star Trek without letting you go here. You play the boss on Star Trek. You play Captain Kirk, of course. We're big Trekkies up here in Vancouver, especially with news that we're going to have some scenes shot up here in Vancouver. Anything you can tell us about the upcoming Star Trek movie?
I can't, unfortunately. I don't know anything about it. I know that we're shooting sometime next year and that Roberto Orci is directing, but beside that, I really don't know.
Well, if you're in Vancouver, you're more than welcome to stop by Breakfast Television. We'd love to have you on. We'll give you a tour of the city even, Chris Pine.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, Chris Pine joining us this morning from Los Angeles. Horrible Bosses 2 in theaters this weekend.